Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Oh, okay. I was just checking, making sure everybody enjoyed their lunch. My name is Caroline Wanga, as Sid mentioned, and I am proud to work at Target, have been there for about a decade. And as I was thinking about the remarks I was going to deliver today, I was like, where's my point of correlation? And I found one. So I'm Kenyan by descent, not the marathon Kenyan, but Kenyan. And when I thought about being Kenyan, what I thought about is how much in my culture, when you have known somebody for a really long time that you're not blood related to, they become your cousin. Anybody familiar with that? The cousins that are your cousins, right? And so I figured that's a point of similarity between me and you, but it is also a point of similarity between Target and HACR. This idea of cousins. We love each other, we spend time together, we believe in each other, and we support each other. And so first of all, I want to say, hey, cousins. It's wonderful to see you, and we also have a Target team that is here that I'll ask to just raise their hands so you can see the Target team we have participating in the symposium. Raise your hands. There they are. Those are some of a few folks from the 365,000 team member team that makes the magic happen. It's great to be here to celebrate with you as we talk about the power of Hispanic inclusion. Target and HACR have long shared a commitment to fostering diversity in the workplace, and Target is incredibly proud to be returning as a sponsor of this symposium. Now, we do a lot of different things in Target, and hopefully all of you have stepped foot in one multiple times. If not, I'll be happy to walk you across the street so you can see what that experience feels like. But at Target, part of being able to deliver on what we do requires an investment in diversity and inclusion as a business imperative, not as a side exercise, not as anything else. We want to continue to fuel the potential and needs of our guests. And so what we make sure is true in our company purpose, which is to fulfill the needs and fuel the potential of our guests, is that we make sure that our people, our products, our philanthropy, our procurement, our partnerships, and our property reflect the cultural demographic shifts that are the guests we want to come and shop at Target, and you are included in that. We have an organizational belief called inclusivity that says diversity and inclusivity make teams in Target better, and this partnership is an articulation of that. It's not just about talent and workplace, it is also about business insight. We consider HACR to be one of our strategic influencers, so as we are going through decisions, one of the phone calls that usually happens is to our partners here to better understand what it is we need to do better. So as we think about the business imperative component, we want to continue to be relevant to our guests. In order to continue to be relevant to our guests, we have to deliver what our guests need. If we become too homogenized, we lose innovation. And where I'm from, lack of innovation quickly renders you irrelevant. So this partnership is necessary for us to continue to be who we are and for you guys to continue to be who you are. I always say at Target that D&I is a full contact, all in, participatory endeavor, which means there'll be bruises, but we'll hug it out at the end as we try to figure out how to make this thing what it needs to be, specifically as we think about the potential of Hispanic inclusion. So I have one more thing that I need to do here, and this is something that is really fun for me, because I'm going to be introducing one of my Target cousins, Nydia, who is, first of all, a powerhouse of a Latina. This woman is an award-winning Hispanic marketer. She is a fantastic marketing genius. She is a friend. She is a colleague. She is a partner in mischief that for the purpose of business, that I fundamentally enjoy. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce one of the co-chairs of our LGBTA Council, as well as leads our multicultural marketing efforts, as well as our CSR marketing efforts, Miss Nydia Sagun.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Caroline. My cousin, sometimes I'm like, she's more of a sister at Target. We are definitely always in mischief together. But really, diversity and inclusion, just a strong partner, as many of you know, in multicultural marketing for any organization, moving CSR efforts, D&I, and really reaching and fueling the potential of our multicultural guests, it needs to move in tandem. So thank you, Caroline, again, for the great introduction. So I'd really like to start out by expressing how honored I am to be here, not only because I am a YHCA alum, and this year got to participate in the Corporate Achievers Summit, but it's really for the opportunity to kick off the HACR's 23rd Annual Symposium with all of you. Now, I've spent the last several weeks thinking about what I wanted to share, because it's not that often that you get an opportunity to have so many powerful Latinos in one room and really have their attention. And I initially intended to really speak to my experience last year as a YHCAer for the first time. I had attended HACR in the past, but Target actually afforded me the opportunity to participate in the program. But that really quickly changed as I came back for CAS. On Friday, I spent a lot of time with my cohorts, and I really wanted to think about this a little bit differently, because this summit is really, and the symposium is really about the connections that we make here. So over the past 2.5 days, I've literally spent morning, noon, and night, and some will debate, maybe later night, with really incredible people that I know. We shared stories, we learned together, and most importantly, we empowered each other to continue working towards the goals that we had outlined together as YHCAers last year. I really can't express in words the camaraderie, the pride, and the motivation that is created within these groups as a result of the forum that HACR has provided us to be able to do so. It's organizations like HACR that are critical to our community and the future of Latinos in America. And if I can leave you with 3 things that I've learned over the past few days before we kick off our day, it's this. It's for the rising Latino leaders like myself, we have to listen and learn. We have to make these meaningful connections, as many as you can, and commit to staying in touch, because without that, it's not sustainable. It won't help us propel the community forward. This program, to me, is not just a moment in time. It is a lifetime of support and empowerment. For the current Latino leaders, many of which are at Target and in this room today, we all look up to you. So please continue to impart your wealth of knowledge. Guide us as we continue to propel our community forward. And to everyone in this room collectively, let's remember that while we are and have been afforded the opportunity to participate in HACR in some of the programs, it's an incredible organization. That's not the case for many others in our community. And so it's really up to us to extend that hand and raise our community up with us. So I want to thank all of you for being here today. I'm excited being afforded the opportunity from Target to be able to kick off the symposium, and I really, truly look forward to making meaningful connections with each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline, and thank you, Nidia. And Nidia, we are so proud of you as a YHCA alum, and it's just an example of how investing in the pipeline, a YHCA yesterday now becomes a higher-ranking Target leader. So thank you for your leadership, and thank you, Target, for being our host sponsor. So now we start with our first program of the day. It is our C-Suite Roundtable featuring Perez, Carlos Castro, and Stephen Hill. And here to moderate, I'd like to welcome to the stage someone who I have known for so many years, who has been a champion in terms of education empowerment. He's not only the treasurer on the board of directors of HACR, but he is also the president and CEO of Aspira Association. So please give a big, warm applause to Ron Blackburn Moreno.
Good afternoon, buenas tardes. This is my 23rd symposium, believe it or not. I've been with HACR since before we had symposium. The first one was about a gathering of about 40 or 50 people. This is quite a crowd. This is quite a crowd. Thank you so much for coming. And thank you, Sid, our new leader. This is his first symposium, and he's done a tremendous job in putting this together. Before I get started, I have a lot of housekeeping stuff. Of course, this is, when I started with ACER, we didn't have an ACER app, and we didn't have a hashtag, and we didn't have a Twitter account, and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, I wanted to remind you to post pictures and comments on the ACER app to gain points, and of course, on Twitter and Instagram, using the hashtag ACER 2015, and all posts will be displayed on the cameras and the screens around the Ritz-Carlton. And also, please remember to post pictures and comments to the ACER app to gain points, and on Twitter, Instagram, again, using a hashtag ACER 2015. We're also running an app contest again this year, and like last year, we'll be awarding a prize to the #1 person on the leaderboard on Tuesday's lunch. As Sid mentioned, and of course you all know, this symposium, these events of these several days would not be possible without our sponsors. And especially in this case, the sponsor of this roundtable, MGM. And here to provide some remarks on behalf of MGM is Tony Gladney. He's Vice President of National Diversity Relations. Please join me in welcoming Tony Gladney.
Good afternoon. All right, I'm going to go for it twice. We're committed to excellence. Good afternoon. All right, that's it. We are excited today, and we're excited because MGM Resorts International is really so proud to be a sponsor, not only of HACR, but of this C-Suite Symposium. Anytime that I get the opportunity to represent MGM Resorts and speaking to you about the commitment of our 62,000 plus employees and what they've accomplished, I would really be missing a very key ingredient if I didn't tell you about the relationship with HACR. First, congratulations to Sid Wilson for his presidency and CEO. As I've known Sid for years, obviously they couldn't have picked a better person to galvanize and continue to lead the way, so congratulations. MGM Resorts is committed, and we're committed to excellence. And a part of that excellence, we didn't get there in our commitment to diversity by, pulling something out of the sky without some planning and strategy. And I'm here to tell you that HACR was a big part of that. In the year 2000, when we started our diversity initiative, one of the first things that we did and one of the first actions that we took was to find very key strong partners that could help us from a best practice perspective, that can help us to really get to the type of level that we would be respected not only in our industry, but in corporate America. And when we reached out to HACR as one of MGM Resorts' first partners, we reached out, and at that time, Ron was on the board, and what HACR did was they sent a group of individuals to come out and to talk to us and to work with us and to share with us about how we can strengthen our efforts and inclusion in the Latino community. And that really helped us. And we are here today, sitting before you, having the excellence that we've had, sharing what we've shared as far as our internal partners and our external partners because of the great partnership of HACR. Now, I'm going to tell you something a little bit exciting to get you excited for this weekend, because I think it has a big part to do with really where we've come as a corporation. Obviously you've heard a lot about this big fight taking place. I don't know if you've heard. I think it's, Floyd Mayweather and, some, strong boxer named Pacquiao, but let that be evident to the hard work that if we don't think about the importance of diversity and the importance of reaching out to an employee base and to a potential customer base, where would we be? A living example of what's taking place at the biggest fight that's going to take place at one of our properties that one of your panelists today has worked very hard trying to make sure that these things happen, is because we know that we have to have diverse offerings to our customers. So when we talk about our MGM property, our city center property, our Vidura campus that Carlos represents, when we talk about our Mandalay property and many of our famous brands, we know that a big part of that is not only from a diverse perspective of our properties, but it's a diverse employee workforce that reaches out to a customer base that really impacts our bottom line. So I have one more story to share before I end my comments. We are extremely proud that we have been being a part of the Young Hispanic Professionals, and we have evidenced growth within this leadership right within our own company. This year we have the pleasure of our National Diversity Relations manager, Magali Munoz, being a part of that class. We have someone here with us today, Maria Jose Gotti, who was actually a part of the class a couple of years ago. And to show you the growth that she's been able to have, she was promoted last year, to our executive director of philanthropy and community engagement. So I'm going to her and asking her for favors. So Maria, could you stand so people can see one of our young professionals in action? Thank you for giving us the opportunity. Please continue the great leadership, HACR, and we look forward to a great panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Tony, for your support, your friendship over all these years. All right, so now let's get started. Here to moderate our C-Suite Roundtable. Please give a big, warm applause. She is the anchor for ABC 11 right here in Atlanta, Angelica Alvarez.
Thank you for having me. All right, now let me introduce the men who are sitting up here today. We'll begin with Carlos Castro. He's the newly appointed Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer for the ARIA campus. In this role, he administers the overall financial policy and direction for the ARIA campus, including ARIA, Vidura, the shops at Crystal, Mandarin Oriental, and Shadow Creek Golf Course. He also provides valuable leadership in the development and execution of strategies designed to maximize profitability at all campus entities. Castro is a graduate at the University of Nevada in Las Vegas and holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Hotel Administration. And then also up here we have Stephen Hill. He was appointed Vice President, GM North America, U.S. Sales and Service in February of 2014. In this role, Hill is responsible for sales, service, and marketing for Chevrolet, Buick, GMC Fleet, and Commercial. Prior to his current position, he was the North America Vice President for the Customer Care and After Sales. Throughout his career, he has held numerous sales and marketing positions of increasing responsibility for GM. These roles included Vice President of Cadillac, U.S. Sales, Service, and Marketing, General Manager of Retail Sales Programs, Regional Director of North Carolina Region, Executive Director of Retail Planning and CRM Marketing, Dealer Network and Sales Promotion, as well as extensive field experience. He's also a graduate of Michigan State University with a bachelor's degree in business administration and a graduate of Wayne State University where he earned his MBA. Out of breath on that one. We also have Arnaldo Perez. He joined Carnival Corporation in July of 1992 as Assistant General Counsel. He was promoted to Acting General Counsel and Security of Carnival Corporation in 1995, and in 1996 he was named General Counsel. As General Counsel, he is responsible for the legal affairs of Carnival Corporation and PLC, which operates 9 worldwide cruise brands. He earned a bachelor's degree in accounting from the University of Miami in 1982 and a JD from Columbia University in 1985. He is a member of the Florida Institute of Certified Public Accountants. All right, now we'll get the conversation started with them. How about now? Can you hear me better? All right. All right, we'll start off with what are some key leadership traits you consider must-haves in order to be successful? We'll start closest to me and then down the line if you want.
Well, as far as key leadership traits, I think it's important that obviously a leader be able to project knowledge and control of the subject matter of the business that's being conducted, by his or her particular group. Obviously, it's important, I think, also to respect all the people that are in your group. There are varying, obviously, backgrounds, education levels, et cetera. And I think it's very important to respect everybody. And that way, you create an environment that's very conducive to contribution by all to the greater good and the success of the initiatives of the group.
Well, I think it starts off with, the way I think about it is if you don't have integrity, you're nowhere. There's just no spot on the bench in our organization. But other key things that we look for certainly would be a willingness to work with others. And in our organization that certainly includes diversity. Team player is very important. A lot of times what's good for our individual business unit isn't necessarily good for the greater company. So we look for people that are willing to take a hit for the company in their particular business if it's good for overall for the organization. And then a willingness to do whatever it takes to win. It's an ultra competitive market out there, particularly in the car business, as I'm sure it is in your businesses as well. And we look for someone that's got a little bit of edge and is willing to work hard to make the organization successful.
A leader has to have followers. So I think in our business, and what I've seen is that you have to be empathetic. Today's leader, the old school regimes aren't really working with our new employee base coming through the ranks. You have to be open, you have to be compassionate, you have to be caring. You have to connect at a level at the line with directors, with managers, with supervisors. It's no longer you can just sit in the ivory tower and dictate policy and procedure. You got to get down there, roll up your sleeves. I think the key to leadership is visibility. We tell our supervisors and managers and directors, you have to be on the floor. You have to be there with the guest. You have to understand what your people on the front lines are going through every single day. A manager in the back office is obsolete. They're a buggy whip. You've got to be out there with your people. And so what we've preached, what I preach with my teams, even though I'm in finance, you got to walk a mile in the operator's moccasins. You got to get out there. If we're going through financial review processes, if we're suggesting better ways, more efficient ways through analysis to do the business, well, you got to actually get out there in the field and see what they're going through. And so what I see in a leadership trait is you got to be a leader that people will follow, And I think that's extremely important.
And then what do you look for when you hire executives? What are you looking for in them? You can start.
We're skipping. That's okay. We're looking for some of the traits we've already discussed here. I think clearly the basics are, intelligence, drive, desire to get ahead. But in an organization, as I said earlier, chemistry is very important. So we're looking for people that can work within the group that we have, with the team that we've assembled. And I found that works extremely well. If you hire somebody who doesn't fit in, it's very disruptive to the day-to-day operations. Like I said, it's a given that people have to have the skills, but it's the social aspects that we're touching on that I think are critical.
Our organization is pretty big, so to have a one-size-fits-all, what are you looking for in an executive? It really depends. If I'm looking for someone in our sales organization, I'm looking for somebody that, excuse the term, that eats what they kill a little bit. So you're looking for somebody with that edge. You're looking for somebody that is, let's think of a hunter rather than a farmer. If I'm looking for somebody that's working in digital marketing, and all those same attributes wouldn't necessarily apply. So I'd be looking for a higher degree of analytical skills, or marketing experience, or in a lot of cases, from an age demographic and from a diversity demographic, in certain key organizations like digital, we're looking for somebody that's just state of the art, right out of B school, somebody that really understands not just what's important today, but looking down the road what we think could be important, and how do we get on the front end of that wave.
Yeah, absolutely. It depends on what part of the operation you're looking at, and that kind of runs along you could call it an XY axis, an XY chart of aptitude and attitude. So the majority of the positions in the gaming industry, we're hiring for attitude. We have training programs in place that will take a personality, a great personality, and we'll train them to the technical aptitude that we need. But you cannot train personality. I've seen people try it. It's never worked. You cannot make people smile when somebody comes in to check in. Now, when I'm hiring for an accountant or a finance position, I can forego a little bit of personality and trade that off for a little.
How about an engineer?
Oh, yeah.
Engineer, you can get rid of the whole thing, right?
I'll trade that aptitude for a little personality. So, but I was given some great advice early in my career. Some people might have said I was, a hot-headed Latin. I don't know what they're talking about, but the advice that was given me, do you want to be right or do you want to be effective? And so I mentor that to the people on my teams, to people I work with throughout the company. Do you want to be right or do you want to be effective? We want leaders that can be effective, and that means working in teams, working with other people, stepping outside of their comfort zone, seeing things through a different lens. That's very difficult for a lot of our young executives coming up. So my goal in life is to pound that into them, that you have to be effective in order to be successful.
If I could follow up on that point, because I agree 100% with the new wave that's coming in. There's this concept that was out of vogue and now it's coming back into vogue called emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. That kind of measures people's capacity to interact, relate, and read other people. And I have 4 kids, and believe me, I struggle with this with my own kids every day. They're tied to their iPads and iPhones and texting, and the concept of direct communication is almost a lost art. And that is invaluable, though, when you're trying to move up the corporate chain, the corporate ladder, and the ability to read other people, form accurate judgments of how to deal with those people and how to interact with them is key. And I think it's very difficult with the newer wave coming in to find folks that are attuned to that, and it's not easy to train them in that regard, but we have to try our best.
We've spent a lot of time trying to understand from a consumer base and also from an employee base, millennials, to your point,
Yeah.
and certainly what makes a baby boomer tick is different than what makes a millennial tick. But the one thing that I do, if I'm speaking to a college group or maybe some new hires that come in, just as we've spent a lot of time trying to understand as boomers, because a lot of our leadership is in the boomer category around my age, trying to understand them. I think it's also important, because there's some millennials here as well, that I try to preach that you are an individual brand in this company. And what are you doing to differentiate yourself as a brand? And if we're going to spend a lot of time trying to understand you, it would be very helpful if you spent some time trying to understand the people that you work for. And when we do that, we'll be a much stronger organization. It's a little bit like what you said. You got to walk a mile in someone else's moccasins. You got to understand that, or you're just not going to build an effective team.
Yeah, a lot of the feedback is that personal feedback. It's a sincere thank you for a job well done. And the beauty of a thank you, a sincere thank you, is it doesn't cost any capital, right? There's no investment in that. It's just getting on the floor and addressing. So those are the traits that we like to see in the leaders coming up. People that can actually, again, hold a conversation rather than send a text message. Great job.
Well, bouncing off of that, what is the role of mentors and sponsors when it comes to career advancement? You want to go?
Oh, here we go
Keep the
again.
batting order the same.
Well, my personal career, I didn't really have a mentor. I was blessed to have two chairman and a vice chairman who are very excellent businessmen as well as individuals who gave me a chance at a very early age to take the position of general counsel. And they kind of had some patience with me moving along, and that helped a lot. At Carnival, we have a mentorship program for young kids, high schoolers, trying to get them at an early age to teach them what it's like to succeed in a corporate environment. And for them, a lot of these concepts are very foreign. But I myself am a mentor, and it's very interesting. I learn as much from them as I think they do from me. But we all have to kind of do our part to try to train these youngsters. The millennials are moving along, but even the next wave coming after them, because they need some hand-holding and help to get there.
It's interesting if you looked and did probably a survey of all senior executives, I think probably the one thing you would find is almost all of them had a really strong mentor somewhere in their career. I know I did. And for those of you that are in those senior roles, I guess my one bit of advice would be sometimes, particularly when you have someone young that has a lot of ability, it's really easy to say, that person really hasn't checked that box, or they haven't been here that long, or maybe they really don't understand it. Sometimes the best way to get folks to grow is really put them in a job that they're not quite ready for. And, be a strong mentor, be there for them, but give them that stretch assignment and watch them grow. The other thing that I've noticed, because we have really tried to have more of a formalized mentor process, and it is amazing to you. We have the demographic at GM is that there's just a lot of folks because we've gone through the economic cycles, that are between 50 and 55, and then we have a lot of people that we just recently hired. And it's amazing, you can take somebody that is, let's say, just a solid performer, has been around for a while, but you let them be a mentor and watch exactly what you said. Watch their performance improve, because nobody wants to go out on their career and say, that guy's a slacker. They pick up their game. They walk a little taller. They have a purpose for being there. And I think the mentor and the mentee learn from each other, and the performance of the organization just rises. So, I'm a huge believer in it.
Yeah, I would echo that as well. I think it probably is the most important, dynamic that's working within an organization. All of our organizations are political, right? Sometimes it can be a game of survivor. And so if you're out there and you don't have a sponsor, you don't have a mentor, things may be a little more challenging. So for you younger folks in the audience, I highly recommend you attaching yourself to someone in the organization, right, that you can learn from. And the beauty of it is, it doesn't have to be a formal program. I probably have 5 or 6 mentors out there that don't know they were my mentors, but I observed every single thing they did at every opportunity. I sought them out. I asked for lunches. I asked for meetings. And we came in well prepared and took lots of notes and was just a sponge. Now later in my career, I have an amazing opportunity to work for a gentleman by the name of Bobby Baldwin. And some of you may have heard that name. Bobby Baldwin was one of the youngest winners of the World Series of Poker. He and Steve Wynn basically transformed the gaming industry between the two of those gentlemen. And now he's my boss, and I'm going to take full advantage of that. You know, at this point in my career, full advantage of what Mr. Baldwin can teach me and what I can learn from him. So you never stop learning, you never stop growing. I think that's when you hit a plateau in your career that is not a good thing. So I would say on both ends, reach out, be a mentor. It's extremely important. I tend to have a couple going on formally because we have a program in our company, but I have many informal mentors as well. And I take a great amount of pride in the fact that many of these have sought me out, right? It makes me feel good that they sought me out to ask me to help them out, and I would never tell them no. We're all busy, but I always try to make time, whatever I can, to help them out. And they come well prepared, and they ask great questions, and hopefully they're going to be the future leaders of our organization.
You know, the one thing that I think sometimes we put ourselves in our box when we talk about mentors is we think that our mentors have to be in our organization, and they really don't. When I think back on my career when I was starting out in upstate New York, and you're traveling, you're by yourself, and you know, you'd leave the dealership and you'd say, you know what, I'm gonna go to dinner, and I'd come back and I'd really just watch the dealer or the general manager, you know, how they interact. Or when I was in marketing, you know, on a Saturday, I would, you know, I'd always want to go into the agency and, you know, I want to visit with the creative guys. Let's find out, you know, how is this pie made? You know, how, you know, what can I learn? And in both cases, I learned an enormous amount from people that were not GM badged folks. And, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all.
What advice can you offer for how to overcome career stumbling blocks? I know, Stephen Hill, you had mentioned issues with engagement. People text rather than talk. What advice can you give to get over that and get out of the habit?
The stumbling blocks, I mean, you know, when I think about my personal stumbling blocks, you know, kind of funny. Public speaking is one of them. You know, I think, you know, personally, I think it's just something you gotta take head on. I mean, you know, if you have a weakness, you gotta work on the weakness. Now, maybe you're never going to take an introvert and make them an extrovert, or vice versa. But you know, you gotta confront that issue. And in terms of helping other people do it, you know, we have a saying in my organization. It's kind of, you know, just put the smelly fish on the table. Put it out there. If there's an issue, you know, it's way better off being out in the open and being discussed than kind of tucked away in the back office, and then, you know, and it only comes out when something really bad is going to happen. So, you know, I personally believe that almost every stumbling block of an individual, I'm a firm believer that 99% of the people come to work trying to do a great job. And there's just things that maybe they go to work with blinders on. There's things that they're doing that they're just not seeing. I think, you know, just exposing that to people is a huge enabler. And if your organization doesn't utilize like a 360, you know, where you're talking to not just your bosses, because we all get great input from our boss, right? But, you know, how about the people, your peers? How about the people that work for you? And if you don't have one, it doesn't need to be really expensive. I know when we went through our restructuring, we kind of got away from that, and we just had one of the guys in the office do it on SurveyMonkey, and it was just real simple, you know, and said, I'm looking for feedback, and, you know, through the evaluation process, almost without fail, that's the thing that people want to focus on the most.
Okay. Anyone else?
Well, I can chime in a little bit. One of my stumbling blocks is I'm basically an introvert. Not an outgoing social person. So advice I would give, this might be a little bit outside the box, but pick your spouse, significant other very well, because...
I had a low bar.
I can honestly say I would not be sitting here were it not for my wife. She is, yeah. And I say that because she has an amazing ability to connect with people, emotional IQ off the charts. So she has been able to socialize with members, spouses of our board of directors, gotten me invited to meetings or dinners that I wouldn't have gotten invited to. And it's a fact, so, it may be hard to do, but, take that into account when you're considering where you're going.
Does she have a sister? I would say in stumbling blocks, I've tried to either, coach or in my own career, be proactive. So I think the best defense against coming up against stumbling blocks is to have a really deep and big toolbox. And you get a big, deep toolbox by getting outside your comfort zone and doing a lot of different things. Early in my career when I was in consulting, I was the one who would, it might have been, hindsight's 20/20, but raise my hand to say, I want the hardest job. I want the nastiest job. I want the consulting gig that no one else wants. I want the nastiest, meanest client. I want to go and just get outside the comfort zone. And when I came and confronted certain obstacles or stumbling blocks in my career, I could always go back to a certain situation where, okay, I can handle this. I'm going to draw upon this experience. I can do this. And getting outside, and I got great exposure when I was with the Hilton organization early in my career, and presented to a board of directors meeting on a $150 million slot conversion technology process. And my CFO at the time said, I'm not going to present, because I was going to go in and present, and I'm the button guy on the PowerPoint. And he goes, no, you're going to present. I didn't sleep for 2 days prior to that meeting. I was nervous. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, but coming through that experience gave me the ability to say, that's probably the hardest thing I will ever do. Giving a presentation, you got Baron Hilton in the back chomping on a cigar, you've got everybody that will influence your career in that organization right in that room, firing off questions. And so after that, I said, okay, I can handle most anything that's going to come up. That's probably the hardest thing that I might end up doing. There have been harder things since then, but that was pretty tough. But it's because I put myself out there, and I had a great leader that allowed me to put myself out there.
Is there any specific advice from a mentor or a peer you can remember that really had an impact on any of your careers? Any stories?
Not that I can tell in
No.
public. There's a saying that we use a lot, or we used to use a lot, and we stole it from Vince Lombardi, but that the only place success comes before work is in the dictionary, and I think it's as true as when he said it in the early '60s, and I think it's very true today too. We live in a global economy, whether you like it or not, and there are not too many, whether you're in your business, in the hotel business, or in your business, cruise line. I mean, there's just, no matter how successful you are, there's someone looking to knock you off. And if you look at the Fortune 500 companies right now today, and you take a picture of it, in 10 years, a third of those companies will be out of business. So, so that emphasis on continuous improvement, making yourself better every single day, and on hard work, it's never been more true than it is today.
I would say, the best advice I think I got from a professional perspective came from my father, who, basically told me there's going to be challenges you're going to face because of your last name, color of your skin. You're going to have to outwork, out-hustle, outplay. You're going to have to do more than maybe your competitor. And I've always, whether I was playing sports, and you're the first one to the practice field, and you're the last one to leave, you're the first one in the weight room, you're the last one to leave, to my professional career. I'm the first one in the office sometimes, and I'm the last one to leave, and I'm working hard. And I'm trying to get an edge. And I think that's, I think some advice in terms of how do you, work, hard work. Hard work doesn't replace anything else. You can be smart, but you got to work hard.
What advice do you have for Hispanic professionals on advancing and succeeding in corporate America today?
I think we've discussed some of that. I think you have to join an organization and first start with work, a career that you have a passion for. Because if you don't have a passion for something, I've seen it in people, the effort, the drive just doesn't follow. So do something that you're really interested in, that really motivates you, and then find an organization that you think shares your values. And then it's definitely a question of the hard work. There's no substitute for that. And making the contacts, within the organization, laterally, below you, above you, as much as possible. Don't shut anybody out. I've seen people make mistakes. They for some reason, they don't get along with a person, and they tune them out, shut them out, and that comes back to bite you in the long term. I've been at my company for 23 years, and it never ceases to surprise me how somebody that I've had indirect or small contact with at some point turns around to be able to help me, and then I've done the same for others. So just never, ever treat anybody within the organization with disrespect, even though they may not be friendly to you, et cetera. I think in the long run, that pays off and will help you move along.
Yeah, I would say, and I don't know how many organizations have them, but if you're working at a place right now, get involved in an affinity group, a resource group, whatever the correct term is in your organization. It's a great place to network, for sure. It's a great place to get back to the community. And even if you're not, I'm not Hispanic and I'm not a veteran, but I happen to serve on the veterans group because it just means a lot to me. And it also makes me feel good about the company I work for. And I think in a large way, the people that are involved in these resource groups, if there was a way to measure it, the performance is just that much higher. Because we spend more time at work than we spend with our families, unfortunately, and you need to be engaged in it. You need to feel like you're making a difference, and it's also there's just something very special about, particularly as it relates to the community, giving something back just cements that bond with the organization and raises that performance. So if you're not involved in one, get involved. That's my 20-second commercial. So.
No, the advice about alliances, going back to corporate America tends sometimes to be a game of survivor, but it is about treating people with respect, treating your coworkers, treating your subordinates, your team members. You want to be able to say, look, my team members will walk through fire for me, and I'd walk through fire for them, and it's creating that relationship, and being effective amongst your peer group, and it's always making your boss look good. At the end of the day, you make your boss look good. The ability to get promoted is greatly enhanced. But I would say at the end of the day, we talked about working hard and putting the time in, but you have to maintain balance. Some of you are early in your careers and you're probably putting in 80 hours a week and you're going, what balance what? But you have to maintain balance and you have to maintain perspective. At the end of the day, the job's going to be there. I know that ARIA is going to be there, whether I'm there or not. So keep things in perspective. We got to keep a positive attitude and treat people well. So that would be my kind of advice to move up through an organization. Treat people well, treat your people well, treat people with respect. A lot of people don't do that, and they say common sense isn't that common, but you think it would be common sense, and we just need more people out there with a little more compassion, a little more empathy, and I think that's how you get things done, how you get things accomplished.
Moving forward, what do you see as some of the most effective strategies to increase Hispanic representation in corporate America, and what specific suggestions do you have for increasing Hispanic representation? Arnie, we can start with you.
Well, I think clearly organizations like this are key. Our corporation has now become a member. So I think people joining these organizations helps significantly. And our companies and others like this, are reaching out. And I think the networking, getting to know folks like are in this room that are decision makers, within these companies that have made diversity an initiative, I think is a very important place to start.
I think it kind of begins and ends with a customer. Okay, if I think about our business, right, we can be as diverse as we want, but we have to be customer centric. And what that means is, as the country becomes more diverse, that in my world, well, it only makes sense that our dealer body looks like that. The people that sell and service our vehicles look like that. And it's just, to me, it's really about just building a company that is just, very customer focused and customer centric and understanding what's happening, in society around them. And when you do that, you're just not going to go very far off. And we see, certainly whether it's youth or diversity or whatever, we just see this ideas coming and looking at problems and looking at issues with a different lens, with maybe a little different aperture, is just a huge enabler for us in terms of the way we approach our business.
We've, with guidance from Tony and others on our CSR committee, and I'm a member of our corporate CSR committee, we've thought long and hard about this. If you look at our industry, 49% of the line level is Hispanic in Las Vegas. And then as you start to go up the ranks of management, it drops off precipitously, dramatically. I take it back to education. One of the things that was pounded into me was you will get an education. And we don't, at the college level, it's almost too late. We got to get these young kids at the elementary school level, at the high school level, right? Then when they're in college, they're in programs ready to move into senior level management positions. We got to look at the dropout rates. We have to address this very aggressively and very proactively because we need a talent pool. I look at 50 applicants for an accounting or finance position, and the representation just is not there. So we need to work on that at that level, in my opinion. Because we want to be diverse. We want to hire the best people for the job. And we know that Latins are some of the best people. We need to get them into the ranks, ready to be promoted, ready to move up. But I think it starts with education at a young age.
And what does it take to be a leader in corporate America and an advocate for Hispanics? Arnie, do you want to start?
Well, I think part of it takes some courage and some self-confidence and integrity on the part of the leaders because it's clear, I've witnessed in my lifetime when initiatives are put into place, for increasing diversity, you're going to get the majority group, let's say, kind of rolling their eyes and saying, people are getting the jobs because of, ethnicity, et cetera. And an organization has to overcome that. And it takes, leadership at the top to send the message as to why it is so important to diversify, that the people who are being hired are not in any way lesser than others that would have been hired. But nonetheless, there is a feeling that has to be overcome by people who are affected by this and who might not be supportive. And I think that has to start from the top and push down, and it's education.
When I think about our organization, just to give a little backdrop, because I know not everybody's in the car business, but we have 4,300 dealers, and we're pretty proud of the fact that we have the most diverse dealer network in the industry. And a lot of times it's kind of interesting that when you get with these groups, the dealers and the diverse dealers are kind of, they're like what are you going to do to improve this? And I always want to say, what am I going to do? What are we doing together to organically grow the diversity of our workforce at GM, but also our dealer facing? Because in our world, our dealers are our brands in the individual. We could have the greatest diversity in General Motors and the Rent-Cent in Detroit, but we're not interacting with the customers on a day-to-day basis, right? So, it always, sometimes we really have to lean in, because there's a lot of very successful, a lot of very wealthy dealers. And I think sometimes they're like, if there's an opportunity, I'd like to see that opportunity go to me. And I'm like, well, who gave you the first shot, okay? What are you doing to give back to the community? What are you doing, within your internal business to have diversity? And then, who are we going to collectively put together into the next opportunity? So this thing kind of is a little bit of a multiplier impact to our business. And usually, at least the good ones, when they stop and think about it, they're definitely on board and willing to roll up their sleeves and work with us.
Yeah, it definitely has to be an initiative from the top. Unfortunately, that's I think the situation that we're in. And so it cannot look like numbers, it can't look like percentages, it can't look like affirmative action, but it has to be a program, and I would say a relatively defined program. But that starts with training programs and getting that 49% from here to that next level, and that comes in training and education, and then taking that next group through mentorship and additional training to here, and so that the pool of talent is wider. That way, it doesn't become an affirmative action program that we need X number or X percent of this ethnicity. But if it's not dictated and directed from literally the CEO or the board of directors, it may not happen, it may not come to full fruition.
All right, this time we'd like to open the floor up for any questions from any of you for any of our panelists. See a couple of hands. Take you right there.
Comes the hard questions.
Right there. There's a microphone coming for you. Right there.
Thank you. I'm Evelyn Dixon, representing AT&T. And for Mr. Hill, I want to say I'm a proud brand new owner of a GM vehicle, 3 Nissan. Okay. It is my midlife crisis car. I would say my red hot convertible Camaro.
And I subscribe to AT&T, so there you go.
There you go. We're cousins. We're cousins. So my question is, the first question about being an effective leader, you mentioned without integrity, you go nowhere. So I'd like to ask the three of you if you can describe an opportunity where your personal integrity at anywhere in your career was challenged, maybe, and how you overcame that.
I can start. Mine's easy. Early in my career, I was in development, and we were working on a project with a country, and I was flat out offered a $100,000 gaming chip. And respectfully pushed it on the other side of the table, folded up my stuff, and walked out of the room.
Yeah. I can't say it was $100 grand, but to me, integrity is like one of these buzzwords everybody uses and stuff. I mean, integrity to me is, it's kind of like doing the right thing when nobody's watching, right? That's what it means to me. And I have, in dealing with, our dealer partners, and these are entrepreneurs and similar things. There has been plenty of times where you could have looked the other way, you could have bent the rules, you could have done something else, and you just, it's just something that you either have it or you don't. And if you don't, it's very hard to learn, kind of like what you were saying before. So, But when you have it, it's not even in the stream of consciousness. It's like, this discussion is not happening, it's over. So, there's something similar in my line of business as well.
Yeah, I guess for me as a lawyer, integrity is key. Without that, I have nothing and I'll be out the door pretty quickly. So, and you develop the reputation for integrity by making tough calls, as in the business and over the years. People over time get to know who you are or what you stand for, and they'll stop trying to push the envelope so far, that it falls off the table, because they know it's not going to pass muster. So I think I'm in a unique position, being a lawyer, that I've got to preserve my integrity and credibility to the maximum extent. And it just involves, over the years, taking some tough stands that are not very popular, but in the end, most of those have proven out, and maybe I've been lucky, but it's worked out.
Hello, my name is Maria Sanchez from Northrop Grumman, and you talked about mentoring and representation. I'm curious, what are you doing to reach out into your organization to make sure that there are Hispanic women being represented, maybe a level or two below the CEO?
What we're doing, what I'm specifically doing is, like I mentioned, we have a workforce right now that's, candidly, in a lot of parts of our business, within the next 5 years, 50% or 2/3 of the organization will be retired. I mean, that's just the nature of our business. So, what we are spending a lot of time on right now is what you were mentioning is trying to get the farm club right. So, we have a huge opportunity as people are attriting and people are retiring to bring in a level of diversity that we've never seen before. And in the sales and marketing organization, our hiring practices is about 2 to 3 times higher than our general population in terms of diverse candidates, and we are hiring today more women than men for probably the first time, ever in our organization. So, it's one of those things that, obviously it'll take a few years for these folks to mature to get to, Mary Barra's seat, okay? But if we have a good farm club of people there, I'm very convinced that we'll have, a very strong organization. We're setting up the General Motors to be successful in the future.
I would say at Carnival, we made diversity a very strong initiative, and the expectation is that we are going to become a more and more diverse company. And to do that, we hired Mr. Orta. So if it doesn't happen, talk to him. No pressure, no pressure.
Maybe I should get your business card. I think the same sentiment goes with MGM Resorts International, is putting a program into place that's directed by Mr. Jim Byrne, our CEO, and by the board of directors to get more, not necessarily just Hispanic women, but more minority women, minorities in general, up through the organization. And it doesn't come overnight, it comes with hard work.
Hello, Krista Wessels with ADP. Prior to working in corporate America, I worked in higher education with underrepresented and first-generation college students. And I think your thoughts on creating that pipeline are spot on, but I'd like if you could expand upon what you're thinking about how we can engage more Latinos into the corporate workforce.
Yeah, I'm involved with a couple local high schools in Las Vegas to get them at that level, right? So to get them more on a business, finance, and hospitality bent. So get them the confidence that they can go be the CFO or the CEO or the COO of whatever they want to be, right? It's instilling them at that early age. And so we're working with a couple high schools in Las Vegas, and then we're working with UNLV to help that smoothing of the process, right? Sometimes for these kids, the home life isn't great, and so it's a little scary, that transition. Can I get into college? What do I got to do? There's paperwork. It's intimidating for them. I want to ease that. I want to make that transition seamless. So we're trying to get UNLV into the high schools as well. And so once they're identified in this program, boom, they got a good in at getting through the system and getting into the university, and hopefully the dropout rates will decrease. And so we've got our first group of seniors graduating out of these magnet programs, and it's very exciting to see the interaction between the high schools and UNLV, and hopefully we can see these kids then go into a MAP program. We have an apprenticeship program with the university, and so get those kids from the high school into the college, into our apprenticeship programs, finish school, they've got a job waiting for them, right? That's the cycle that we need to set up to get these kids in there, keep them in there, and give them the confidence that know that if you work hard, something's waiting for you, and you can take that and be successful.
Yep. One thing that we tried that if in your organizations you might want to think about it. In the past, GM's always been involved in United Way. That's our big thing, right? But in the past, it would be, the GM Foundation would fundamentally just write a check, and we'd feel pretty good about it, and we'd let it go toward education. And what we did, we set a goal with Detroit, because that's where we're headquartered, and there's probably, you'd be hard pressed to find a city that's been more down than Detroit until recently. So we set this goal and said that, we're going to write a check to you guys, but if your graduation rates go up, the check goes up. And if the graduations don't go up, the check is going to go down. So it was a little bit of pay for performance, if you think about it that way. And the ingenuity that came out of it was phenomenal. We have, in Detroit high schools today, to the reason you were saying, there wasn't this sense of teamwork. There wasn't this sense of community because of a lot of the home life issues. They changed their whole way, where basically the teachers stayed with the class all the way from freshmen to sophomore to juniors, and we've seen this is the city of Detroit. We have a high school that has a graduation rate that's in the 80s. And that same high school had a graduation rate in the 20s. So it does work, but it does take, it's a lot more than just writing a check. And we as an executive team spend time at each one of these high schools and roll up your sleeves and walk beside these kids and think about how you structure that support, because I think it can make a huge difference.
We have a question out there.
Hi, my name is Cecilia. Mr. Hill, I'm so sorry for interrupting you there. But I want to thank the three of you for taking the time from your busy schedules to come and talk to us. I must say I like what I heard about what you said about leadership and what leadership should be. And I heard the words integrity and mindfulness, empathy, and that's wonderful. It's very encouraging to hear that you practice that. And my question is, what would you say would be a core competency that you wish to further foster or further develop to maintain yourself as a leader or as a leader in your organization?
I would say, patience. Is probably one of the things I'm not very good at. And it's just, you don't ever want to get yourself into a, month by month, this is the most important month of your lives, type of mentality. Sometimes great ideas take some time to nurture, and sometimes we give up on people, or we give up on great ideas too early, at least in our business. So, if I could, one thing that I would work on, that would certainly be it.
I've got an opportunity because I'm working with a new team at ARIA, and so I kind of get to reinvent myself to some extent. And I think collaboration, all right, including more people at the table as we start to go forward and make, business decisions and set strategy. A good example is when I get back tomorrow, there's probably 15 meetings on how we're going to maximize our opportunities related to the fight weekend. And before, I would just have smaller meetings and say, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do. But I'm going to change my mindset. We're going to get a very collaborative group together, and we're going to brainstorm on how can we maximize this effort. And I think at the end of the day, we'll get a better result. So collaboration is what I'm going to continue to work on.
For me, I'm not sure it's a competency, but it's kind of an attitude shift as I've matured as an executive. And you reach a point where you realize you're in a position to really help other people and to influence. And I've been trying to take more advantage of that by getting more involved in the community, reaching out, and not just participating in the community, but also even within the company, younger employees who may need recommendation, a leg up, some assistance, helping them, because in the positions that we do have a large degree of influence, and we can't let that be wasted. And we have to use it for programs such as this and others.
So my name is William Colon. I work for TD Bank. And first, I want to thank you guys for recognizing the often underappreciated, underrecognized women who support us in our lives. Mothers, wives, sisters, all of that. So thank you for doing that, because I'm sure everyone in this room appreciates that. The question that I have, and it really goes back to the piece on education, it's really twofold. We are, I think, at a pretty interesting time in our country where the workforce has evolved, but not really. So what role should corporations really be playing in not even secondary education, but to your point, in that high school environment, and maybe even further back than that? And then I loved what you touched on in terms of the corporate mentoring, almost corporate apprenticeship. So if you could expand on that, because I do think this is a really interesting approach.
So I'll talk a little bit about our corporate internship programs. We've made a decision to really go after diverse candidates within that application pool. So we're now actively recruiting in a much wider range of universities. Our HR teams, our diversity teams, Tony and his team is actively out there recruiting. I've been on a couple of recruiting trips just to get, again, a more diverse pool. Now, working with the education side of it, I love the idea of funding and incentive-based funding, but I think it's going to come down to, yeah, we can rest our hopes on the school districts, but that hasn't proven to be successful, at least in Clark County. So how do we take a more direct approach in funding our teachers, funding our schools, putting together programs that are going to directly impact the youth at an elementary, middle school, and high school level? Again, I believe that's where it happens. I've been fortunate and blessed that my children go to private school in Las Vegas. But I would love for the community and for our company to do more in some of those other areas.
I touched on the program that we have at Carnival, and we have it in partnership with the Miami Heat. So the program involves recruiting kids. The Miami Heat recruits them at the elementary school level and prepares them for high school with special educational programs, et cetera. They then turn them over at the high school level, middle school and high school, to Carnival. And there they receive mentors. And the mentors help them. We meet with them once a month. We talk about how they're doing in school, how they can improve. We become true mentors, counselors to them. And the goal is they're all competing for scholarships to college and a prepaid tuition to go to one of the schools in the state of Florida. And these are all minority kids, and they all work hard in this program to succeed and excel. And the program's grown I think by 30-40% over the last 3 or 4 years. And as I touched on earlier, it's very rewarding, not just for the kids who graduate and they get these scholarships, but it is as much for us, the mentors. It's a welcome break from the routine, and to see how these youngsters are progressing and flowering right before our eyes.
Yeah, I can say, well, first of all, my wife is a first grade teacher, so kind of the joke in our household is that she can do my job, but I can't do her job, and that's probably pretty true. So we've tried, we're always, in my mind, I'm always looking for, how do you create a win-win? Because win-wins tend to be something that endure, right? So we've embarked upon something a little bit creative where we are partnering with the educators in the United States, all educators in the United States, and not only are we just giving them a discount on a car because we think they deserve it, we are also doing with our local marketing groups, fundamentally we will have like a GM day or a Chevrolet day at the school so that the teacher can fundamentally, invite the parents, demonstrate our vehicles, and then for every person that comes, we make a donation to that, not to the school, but to that teacher, so that they can have school supplies, they can do field trips when they need to, they can get the basic tools, which in so many of these, particularly our inner city, I mean, the things that I grew up with, and I look at what they are trying to educate, the youth of our nation, it's just, they don't have a toolbox. So we look at it as just a huge opportunity to give back to the community, but it's also something that we can continue to do because it's not only a win for General Motors, it's going to be a win for that local school and that local teacher. So, and by the way, we're going to be wrapping, when we give out the dollars and stuff, it'll be to Target, incidentally, so it'll be another partner, so.
Well, as to the toolbox, to add tools to these kids, we have a new program that we're sponsoring in Miami. It's on behalf of the National Urban Debate League. It's a national organization that sponsors debate leagues and debate teams in inner city schools. And debate has been proven with youngsters to give them great self-confidence and speaking abilities, et cetera, all tools that are very useful for them as they move up and out. So that's another program that we're working with now to try to help the youngsters.
Develop a whole bunch of attorneys? Is that what
well,
you're
yeah.
Okay.
I think we have time
That's
for
my
one more
master plan.
question.
Right.
Daisy O.J. Dominguez with Disney ABC. Your comments show a tremendous sense of self-awareness and confidence. And I'm curious if you can share with us one or two of your most formative experiences throughout your career that have led to the people that you are today.
My father was very influential in the person that I become and instilled a lot of confidence in me. And I got that through, being active, team sports, not sitting at home in front of a computer. We didn't have computers back then, so that wasn't even an option. But, right, so getting out there and being social and gaining that confidence through, working with others at an early age. And that probably for me has made the biggest difference.
I'd say for me, one of the defining experiences was in law school. Came from Miami. I went to Columbia Law in New York City, and I didn't know, how I would compete at that level, whether I'd be able to make it, whether I'd be able to succeed. I'd get there, my first few weeks. There were kids from Harvard, Yale, all over the place. And for me, when I got my grades back at the end of that first year, I wasn't top of the class, but I wasn't at the bottom either. I was middle to there. That really was a confidence builder for me that I can compete at this level. I can do well, and that was huge for me.
I think for me, one of the defining moments, I was part of the team that actually acquired the Hummer brand from AM General, and at the time I was in kind of a I was the left-hand side. I was working in our network and acquisition side of the business, and they said, you know what, we need a network strategy for Hummer. You know, how are we going to go to market? What are the dealerships going to look like? Anything that touched consumer facing. So, once again, I wasn't the one responsible. So you looked at it and how the internet is going to play into this, and who do we want to select, and what's the representation. So I put this together, and I made the presentation to the senior leadership. And I'll never forget the person that has basically my job now says, "You think this is a good plan?" I said, "Yes, sir, I do." This is going to work? I said, "Yes, sir, I think it is." He said, "Congratulations, you're going to implement it." So, and then I went, "Oh, no." But I mean, I think that was a defining moment. It's easy to come up with a great plan and throw it over the wall to the next guy. It's a lot different when you got to implement it. So.
We got our 5-minute warning, so I think we can squeeze in one more question.
Hello, everyone. Anna Pang, Delta Airlines. Just simple question. What makes you smile in the morning? What's your morale booster?
If I don't know how many people have been to Vegas, show of hands, right? I get to go to work at ARIA every day. It's a beautiful $9 billion resort. It's a great team. It's a new challenge. Everything's different. The gaming industry is phenomenal. It's a challenge a minute, and that's what motivates me. I'm always thinking. I'm always on my toes, and I keep my team on my toes. I got great people I work with, and that's what motivates and keeps me smiling.
Yeah, it's funny, in our business, everything's metric driven, right? So I wake up at 4:30 and I flip on the iPhone and we get our sales report at 4:35. So, sometimes I'm smiling and sometimes I'm not. But then, believe it or not, my wife gets up before I do. So she's working out and everything else, and usually it's when I see her. So.
I love my dog. I see my dog in the morning. He's laughing at me.
Never had a bad day.
Never
had a bad day.
All right, that was a good question to end on. Thank you so much for your time and great answers to end on. Round of applause. Thank you for your questions.